welcome to my channel and welcome to my very first BookTube video. So in this video I'm going to be doing my March wrap up, and I actually read a lot of books for me personally. So I read 7 books this month and I'm actually really proud of that considering I am still in college and everything and I was busy all the time, but I still got to read 7 books, so I have them here. Let me grab them. So here are all of the books I read during this month, and I will keep this intro short because I have so much to say. And just a little spoiler for you, every single one of these books made me sob. So without further ado, let's get into the first book. So the first book I read was They Both Die at the End by Silvera, and I'm in love with this book. The characters and the storyline, it was a great start to this month. I saw that this book was trending all over TikTok, so I knew I just had to read it to see what it was all about and see if it was worth the hype, and I think it is for sure. So I'll read the back of the book for you so that you get a little more context, and I'll go into my own opinion on things. So it says, on September 5th, a little after midnight, Deathcast calls Mateo Torres and Rufus Demetrio to deliver some bad news. They're going to die in less than 24 hours. Mateo and Rufus are total strangers, but for different reasons. They're both looking to make a new friend on their end day. The good news is that there's an app for that. It's called Last Friend, and through it, Rufus and Mateo meet for one final epic adventure, to live a lifetime in a single day. So yeah, the world that they live in, they can get a call from the Deathcast letting them know that it is their final day, and these people are known as Deckers to everyone. So the Deckers are the people that are on their final day, and both Mateo and Rufus get that call, unfortunately, and they meet each other through an app called Last Friend. And this book is basically just going through their final day together and the blossoming relationship between the two of them. And it's so well written and it's emotional and it just makes you think of life so differently. Like, what a strange concept this is. Like, could you imagine if you randomly get a call letting you know, hey, you die in 24 hours? Like, it's so weird to wrap my head around it, and the way that it was written really just draws you in and you get so attached to these characters. I wanted to know if the author really did spoil the ending in the title. I'm not going to tell you, so you have to read it, but let's just say the ending had me in tears. One thing in the book that I actually found was really sweet was that Mateo always goes on the Deckers website where they all fill out like their final day kind of like in a blog style, and they write little entries in there, but Rufus isn't for that and he's not really one to want to do that to remember his last day. But Mateo gets him to take photos for his Instagram, and instead of posting in black and white like he usually does, he tells him to post in color. And someone actually created this Instagram account in real life, so if you search up Rufus Demetrio on Instagram, you will find the Instagram account where they recreated all the pictures and everything like that. It just brought them to life, and I was so in love with these characters. I didn't want it to end. I highly recommend you read this one. It's an easy read. I read it in like a day, so super easy to get through. Really well written characters. I love them. Moving on. So the next book I read is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This has quickly become one of my favorite books of all time. I have so much to say about this one. First off, I want to say I am in love with Colleen Hoover as an author. This is the first book I read from her and I need to read more. Like, I already have so many saved in my wish list that I need to read because this is incredible. So the back of the book says, it's not exactly love at first sight for Tate Collins when she meets the tormented and secretive Miles Archer. They wouldn't even go as far as consider themselves friends. The only thing Tate and Miles have in common is a mutual physical attraction that can't be denied. Once their desires are out in the open, they realize they might have stumbled upon the perfect no-strings arrangement. He isn't looking for love and she doesn't have time for it. So that leaves just the sex. What they've got could be surprisingly satisfying, as long as Tate can stick to 2 rules that Miles has for her. Never ask about the past and don't expect a future. They think they can handle it, but everything is different when real emotions start to change the equation. Hearts get infiltrated, promises get broken, rules get shattered, love gets ugly. So by the sounds of it, it sounds very like romancy, lovey-dovey, cheesy, whatever. It is, but it's written so beautifully that you fall in love with Miles just as much as Tate does. And so for this book, we get chapters from 6 years ago and present day. 6 years ago is actually in Miles' perspective, and then present day is in Tate's. In the present day chapters, you are watching Tate fall in love with Miles, and in the past chapters, you're watching Miles fall in love with the first time and what made him to be so closed off in the future. When I tell you, the twist of this book had me sobbing. Oh, I literally have no words for how much I love this book. Just the character dynamic and the growth between them, and just the chemistry and the way that it was told. Everything about this book is just so heartbreakingly beautiful. the pain that you feel hurts your heart so much, but then you also see what their relationship could be if they were just open with each other, and I will never stop recommending this. It was so good. So that's that. So the next book I read was We Were Liars by Lockhart, and I saw this one because it was trending everywhere on TikTok, on YouTube, everywhere, so I just knew I had to read it to see if it was worth the hype. And I will say, I don't know if it was. It's not that I didn't like it, it's just it was too predictable for me. I predicted what happened right from the very start, so when I actually found out what happened, it wasn't much of a surprise for me, but I still did enjoy it nonetheless. So the back of the book says, if anyone asks you how it ends, just lie. We are Sinclairs. We live, at least in the summertime, on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. Perhaps it is all you need to know, except that some of us are liars. So with that, there's not much I can actually tell you about this because it will spoil too much. What I can tell you is that it takes place from the perspective of the main character, Cadence, and she has an accident. And everyone knows what happens but her because of the trauma that she faced from it. So it starts by telling you the early chapters where she has her group that they call the Liars, and then the accident happens and she's not able to go back to that place for a couple of years. And she writes to all of her friends and all that stuff, but they don't get back to her. When she does return, no one will tell her what happened. The doctors, her mother, and everyone have instructed everyone to not tell her a single thing, just to let it come back to her on her own. So as you're reading it, you're going through the journey just like her. You know just as much as she does, but everyone else around you knows exactly what happened. So as it goes on, you obviously find out what happens, and yeah. Overall, I did really like the way this was written. You did grow attached to some of the characters, not as much as the other books. I don't know if it's because I like those ones better that I didn't like this one as much, but with that being said, I still really enjoyed it, the way it was written, the character development, all that kind of stuff, and it made me intrigued to keep reading it more because I just wanted to know what happened. Even though I kind of predicted it, I wanted to know exactly how it happened. So yeah, that is this book. Now, the next book I read is probably my favorite out of all the books I read this month, and it is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tillie Cole. I only have good things to say about this other than I wish it ended differently. But this book, I'm not even kidding you when I say this, had me crying from chapter 4 to the very end. So if you're looking for something that's going to make you sob for hours and hours and hours, read this book. So the back of the book says, one kiss lasts a moment, but 1,000 kisses can last a lifetime. One boy, one girl, a bond that is forged in an instant and cherished for a decade. A bond that neither time nor distance can break. A bond that will last forever, or so they believe. When 17-year-old Rune Christiansen returns from his native Norway to the sleepy town of Blossom Grove, Georgia, where he befriended Poppy Litchfield as a child, he has just one thing on his mind. Where did the girl who was half of his soul, who promised to wait faithfully for his return, cut him off without a word of explanation? Rune's heart was broken 2 years ago when Poppy fell silent. When he discovers the truth, he finds the greatest heartache is yet to come. I just want to cry thinking about this. Give me a moment. So this book has chapters from Poppy's perspective as well as Rune's, and they meet when they are just 5 years old, and you see the relationship blossom from there. And when they are 8, Poppy's grandmother, who she's very close to, actually falls ill, and before she goes, she gives Poppy a gift. So she always told Poppy that her most precious moments in life were when her husband would give her special kisses because it just made her feel warm and special and all that kind of stuff. So she wanted Poppy to have the same thing, so she gives her a jar with 1,000 paper hearts in it so that she can remember the moments that she spent with her soulmate. So Poppy tells Rune, and he gets upset because he wants to be the only one to give her these special moments. So from then on, they decided that they would only kiss each other to have these special moments for her jar. So time goes by and they're a little bit older now and they still have this deal with them, they have this relationship, but then Rune is told that he has to go back to Norway for his dad's job, and obviously the two of them are heartbroken, but they say they'll stay in touch. But then 2 months goes by since he's left and Poppy just ghosts him. She stops talking to him and he has absolutely no idea why. So 2 years goes by, and obviously this doesn't spoil too much because you wouldn't have a book without it, but the relationship kind of grows again and you find out why Poppy just kind of cut him off. One of the only words that I have to describe this is just heartbroken. It left me heartbroken and sobbing. When you find out why Poppy stopped talking to him, your heart aches. And then once you know why, everything they do together throughout this entire thing. It's just 10 times more emotional because you know what it's leading to at the end, and you wish so desperately to just stop that from happening, but obviously you can't do anything about that. So you just have to take it as it is and accept it. The last thing I wanted to share of this book was a quote that I found in it that I really loved, and okay, I'll just read it for you. Life is fragile, yet in that fragility there is strength. There is love, there is purpose. It reminds us that life is short, that our breaths are numbered, and our destiny is fixed regardless of how hard we fight. It reminds us not to waste a single second. Live hard, love harder. Chase your dreams, seek adventures, capture moments, live beautifully. Those words right there just sum up the entire book, and it hurts my heart. But it really changed my perspective on life. It just kind of made me take a step back and realize that we should be living every day like it is our last. You never know what's going to happen, and just take every opportunity that comes forward. Don't be too scared to try something new. Just take every opportunity that comes at you. If you have a good outcome, great, but if you don't, you learn from it and you move on and you continue to grow as a person, and this book really captured that, and I love it. But this book is now also one of my favorite books that I've ever read, and just the characters and the character development and the relationship they have and the way it was written, it was just everything about this was so good. Please read this book, I beg you. Don't let the title scare you. At first I was like, 1,000 boy kisses, that sounds so weird, but trust me, when you look past the title and the cheesiness of it, it just breaks your heart. So the next book I read, it was extremely popular all over TikTok, so I knew that I had to check it out, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I really enjoyed this book, and it was another easy read just like the rest of the books that I've said so far, and I finished this really quickly. I'll read some of the back of the book for you because it is quite long. So it says, what happens when America's first son falls in love with the Prince of Wales? When his mother became President of the United States, Alex Claremont Diaz was promptly cast as America's equivalent to a young royal. There's only one problem. Alex has beef with an actual prince, Henry, across the pond. And when the tabloids get a hold of a photo involving Alex and Henry's altercation, US and British relations take a turn for the worst. To sum up the rest of the back of the book for you, Alex and Henry are kind of enemies at the beginning of this. They've never really gotten along when they were growing up, and when Alex has to go to London for a royal wedding, they have an altercation and they knock over a cake, and the tabloids go crazy with it and think that they are fighting. So to solve this, the two places come up with the idea to make them look like friends across all the tabloids and stuff like that. So they are kind of forced into this friendship and like acting like they actually like each other, and they have to hang out and spend time with each other and also post pictures together. So we see their friendship blossom, and we see it turn from enemies to lovers, and they try and keep it secret and all that good stuff. And it's just so well written. The characters are so adorable, and the story itself between the two of them is absolutely adorable. It was great seeing the character development of these characters as well. Henry has always been kind of known of his sexuality and stuff like that, but Alex wasn't really aware of it, and he was kind of nervous to actually admit that he might like Henry that way. And when he does, it's a great coming of age, coming to terms with who you are and accepting that, and finding people who will support you and love you for who you are. And it was so cute and adorable, and I really did enjoy this one. There was something in this book that actually made me laugh, and I didn't see it coming. So Alex is trying to get a hold of his sister, and her name is June, and to get her attention, he's spamming her with a bunch of names that kind of remind him of her to try and get her to answer. So one of the things that he says to her was, leading member of Korean pop group Kim Namjoon, and that made me laugh. If you couldn't tell, I like BTS, all my albums are in the back. So seeing them mention BTS in this book brought a smile to my face, and I didn't know they did that, so I really liked that. This book also had a great message in it. It kind of showed that your dreams and your plans can change in your life, but it doesn't mean it's the end for you. It can lead to something that's so much better that you never would have expected. And I just thought that a lot of people could relate to the characters and the storyline and the plot. So I really do enjoy this book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone out there who is looking for a good read with a good message. The next book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schawb. I loved this book. Oh my goodness, I have so much to say about this. I found this one also off of TikTok because everyone was going crazy about it, and I can definitely see why. This one took me a lot longer to read than the rest of them, but it's because it was so in-depth in detail, and it was so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it says, never pray to the gods that answer after dark. France, 1714, in a moment of desperation, a young woman named Madeline meets a dangerous stranger and makes a terrible mistake. As she realizes the limitations of her bargain, being able to live forever without being able to be remembered by anyone she sees, Addie chooses to flee from her small village as everything she's held once dear is torn away. But there's still dreams to be had and a life to be lived, and she is determined to find excitement and satisfaction in the wide, beckoning world, even if she will be doomed to be alone forever. Or not quite alone, as every year on her birthday, the alluring Luke comes to visit her, checking to see if she is ready to give up her soul. Their darkly thrilling game stretches through the ages, seeing Addie witness history and fight to regain herself as she crosses the ocean and tries various lives. It will be 300 years before she stumbles into a hidden bookstore and discovers someone who can remember her name, and suddenly everything changes again. So basically, to sum that up, Addie makes a deal with the darkness, and she kind of just wished for more freedom and not being tied down to anything. But when you wish for something after dark, they kind of twist your words a little bit if you don't say it clear enough. And now she's kind of cursed with everyone from her past forgets about her, and everyone she meets in the future forgets about her as soon as they walk away. So basically, she's forgotten and no one remembers her at all, and she's also immortal. So the chapters go from in the past when she is first cursed, and kind of just like telling you the journey, and they also take place in the future 300 years later when she meets the stranger in the bookstore that actually remembers her. So during these 300 years, Addie has to adjust her life to be able to live, basically, and she steals things because that's the only way she can live her life, and they'll forget about her as soon as she leaves the store or wherever she is. So when she goes into a bookstore one day, Henry sees her try and steal a book, and he lets her get away with it because whatever. But she goes back the next day and tries to return the book and exchange it for another one. But when she tries to do this, he basically says to her, next time you want to try this, don't do it with someone who saw you steal the book in the first place. And she's shocked because no one ever remembers her, and she's so confused and thrown off her game because this is the first time in 300 years that someone remembers her the next day. Basically, without spoiling too much, you go through just her life and everyone she's met and how they forget her and how heartbreaking that is for her. And you also discover why Henry remembers her, and then the journey from that point on and what that does to the two of them. It was so well written, and it captured the history of her life perfectly. You go through all the different decades in history that she's experienced, and you get to see the change in her and how each person she meets affects her along her journey. And the relationship between her and Henry, I'm not going to say a lot because I don't want to spoil it for you, so please read it because it's amazing. But things that happen with them, my heart hurts. This is another one that got me crying towards the end. It's not that it was a super sad ending, it was more of just like, I wish it could have gone another way. But I really did enjoy the way this was written, and it kind of just made me think from her point of view of how lonely that must have been, going 300 years and no one remembers you, and you meet these people who are changing your life, but then the next day they have no idea who you are, and that just is so heartbreaking, and it would have been so lonely, and I just felt so bad for her that entire time. But yes, please read this, it is such a good read. I love it. So the last book I read was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and this is another one that I saw trending everywhere and everyone was crying, so I knew I had to give it a go. So the story is about Achilles and the Trojan War, but it's not solely based on that because the perspective isn't from him, it's from someone who grew up with him, Patroclus. Yes, I actually had to Google how to say that correctly. Patroclus is what it is. I was intrigued to this book because it was Greek mythology, and that was one of my favorite subjects back in the day when I learned it in elementary school, so I was really excited to keep reading this one. So the perspective is told from Patroclus's point of view, and it starts when he is a young boy, and his father never really approved of him. He was kind of disappointed with him throughout his entire life, and something happens and he gets exiled and is forced to live in another place, and that is where he meets Achilles. And you get to see their relationship form together throughout the years. It focuses a lot through the younger years of them at the beginning, which was really nice to see, and you see them just being boys and the relationship growing together. So I'm not going to read the back of the book for this one because I will butcher all of the names, so I'm just going to kind of summarize it for you. So Achilles' mother is a sea goddess and his father is not, and the sea goddess is very cruel. She does not support the relationship between these two characters, and she means well, but she just gets really annoying. I didn't like her throughout this whole thing. So when Achilles and Patroclus are 13, the relationship is very strong between each other. Their friendship has grown. Achilles has chosen Patroclus as his companion, and they're always together, and feelings grow between the two. But Achilles' mother does not support this at all, and she can always see them from where they are, and she just doesn't want this to happen. So nothing happens between the two of them. They move on from that even though they still feel things. Because she doesn't like Patroclus, she sends Achilles away to train with Chiron, but Patroclus runs away and actually meets with him again, and Achilles was actually waiting for him to come, so it was like kind of cute and all that stuff. So the two of them stay with Chiron, and he teaches them all things from life skills to hunting to fighting to healing, medicine, all that kind of stuff. And as time goes by, his mother always comes to check on him, and he finds out when he is 16 that she can't actually see him when they're inside the caves. So she's always normally able to see the two of them, so she knows exactly what he's doing at all times, but when they're in the caves where they live now, she can't see anything. So now that they're alone, feelings develop, it gets a little spicy, and they're able to do what they wanted to do for so long now, and you see their relationship blossom from there. Then time goes by and things happen that I won't spoil for you, but eventually we end up at the war, and even though they don't want to fight, they kind of have to because of a prophecy of Achilles' life that they have been informed of. And when he finds out the prophecy, you find out the prophecy, so you know exactly what's going to happen, but you don't know the events that are going to lead to it. And the story takes you through the war itself, as well as all of the character relationships between each other, and you see Patroclus and Achilles' relationship grow and things that are harmful to it, and they meet other people along the way. But it's just another really well written book, and I've said that for all of these, but it's so true. And I loved getting the Greek mythology perspective, but it wasn't solely focused on that, it was also about the relationship, so I really liked that aspect of it as well. And the ending once again brought me into tears, and it's heartbreaking but also beautiful. So I really recommend this one as well as all of these books that I've read, because each one of them brought something different, and it was a good wrap up to my month. Out of all these books, I think my top 3 are Ugly Love, 1,000 Boy Kisses, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. They each brought something new and different to it. All 3 of them had me in tears, but for different reasons, so I would recommend those ones the most out of all the books that I read. And that is it, the end of my March wrap up, my very first BookTube video. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you've read any of these books or if you have any recommendations for me. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And if you want to follow me on my social media, I will link that in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Bye.